The Chinese government has outlined a plan whereby it hopes that its citizens will consume 50% less meat in the forthcoming years. Every 10 years, the Chinese government sets out meat consumption statistics and guidelines, and this year is looking to reduce consumption from around 130 pounds per annum on average to 60 pounds per annum. This is going to be not only have significant health benefits, because China has one of the highest instances of diabetes and also of obesity, but it will also have significant impact and help towards global warming. This is what one of the Chinese officials from the Center for National Climate Change Strategy has to say. He says tackling climate change involves scientific judgment, political decisions, entrepreneurial support, but at last it still relies on involvement of the general public to change the consumption behavior in China. Every single one of us has to believe in the low carbon concept and slowly adapt to it. China currently consumes 28% of the world's meat, including half of the world's pork.
Wow, but that doesn't necessarily mean that individually they are huge meat eaters. If you look at, a traditional Chinese dish compared to like an American dish, for example, we'll still have way more meat compared to other stuff. I mean, a Chinese dish will have like vegetables, a lot of things stir-fried together with pieces of meat. They're not going to eat. Good luck finding like a huge steak in a Chinese restaurant or chicken strips, for example. They don't eat just meat,
right,
pieces, chunks of meat by themselves. They just have so many more people. Of course, they're going to consume so much of the meat.
Also your point that they're trying to reduce it from that 130 pounds when you consider that in the United States, for example, that average is about 230. I mean, it's great that they're...
Right, you're right. Per capita, the Americans eat twice as much as people in China.
Right.
But just because of their numbers, sheer volume, they're 1.3 billion Chinese, that's where the number comes from. But think about this. 14.5% of planet warming emissions currently emanate from meat production. That's a combination of the methane gases that the animals, the livestock produce, which is highly toxic, as we know, together with the fertilizers that is used, together with the reappropriation of the land that is required, 14.5%. And estimates are that by 2050, if we don't do anything else, 50% of all carbon emissions will come from meat production.
Yeah, absolutely.
Consumption.
You talk about the land, you talk about the crops that we have to grow for the animals to feed the livestock. We have the water that's used. I mean, there's so much involved, but I think this is actually a good way to come at it. I know that in China they're looking at the public health factor with the diabetes and obesity, but also I think certainly in the United States, the more attention that's put on the damage that it does to the environment, that seems to, at least amongst my friends that are like super meat eaters, that affects them a little bit more than kind of the PETA style, pull on your heartstrings sort of tactic.
Right, and the Chinese government have some unusual, well, not necessarily unusual, but they have support from perhaps an unusual source. James Cameron and Arnold Schwarzenegger, the former governor and the director of Avatar movies and the Terminator movies, they're together again. I believe they're currently filming the follow-up, the sequel to Avatar. And James Cameron, both of them are outspoken proponents of this initiative. Let's take a quick look.
What China is doing right now with this announcement of trying to reduce meat by 50%, you just have to respect that. I mean, that's a leadership position. International cooperation to solve global problems.
So I'm going to throw a slight note of caution or a slight cynical note in there. I said at the beginning that every 10 years China sets these guidelines. They set a guideline in 2007 for people to hit in terms of consumption. And since that period of time, since 2007, consumption has only increased. So it's one thing to, as the quote said, it's one thing to actually set out the guidelines and have the initiative. It's quite another thing to actually hit those expectations.
I mean, imagine if every country did something similar to this. I mean, we would see a huge decrease of methane gas, and then that would be so detrimental to, of course, global warming as a whole.
Well, and it makes me wonder, like, if China has the same sort of move towards vegetarianism that we do. I mean, certainly we experience that a lot. Even in LA, there's a lot of vegan options in this kind of movement. So, but then at the same time, it seems like the more that information is put out there, then you have other companies that are coming out here being like, we're going to double the meat in this sandwich. Right. You have McDonald's campaign that's just like, go beefian or something, beefitarianism. It's
Yeah, well, the agricultural lobbyists and the farming movement would never have it, and it would be if there was a movement in that way, it would decimate the livestock industry in this country and the subsidies that go along with it, and arguably that would be critical for the economy, and politically it would be disastrous. So I'm not clear. Again, with China, I think it's not to suggest it's easier, but structurally it's very, very different, and they can issue a directive, whereas in this country, that's just not likely or nor possible. So I don't, regardless of whether there are more vegetarian options in, restaurants on Santa Monica Boulevard or wherever it is, I just don't see it necessarily coming and happening in this way.
It's pretty disturbing when you think per capita 230 pounds of meat, right? That's a pretty gross visual.
Oh,
that's a body and a half, right?
Yeah,
when
right.
you're basically like the healthy amount is 3 ounces. It's like it's like a pack of cards or something. That's not the kind of portion you get in America. You get these giant. No wonder we have so much type 2 diabetes and all of this stuff.
And we have our own struggles with diabetes, our own struggles with obesity in this country, as do a lot of Western countries. America's not alone in that. And the impact on the environment, there is a move towards it. It's better for your health, it's better for your diet, and it's better for the environment. There is a growing movement towards increased vegetarianism and reducing livestock farming. But as I said, it's going to be hard fought.